On a fantastic Tuesday afternoon, evening, where some of you may be located at. This is Teddy Bear. Welcome to Night Traxx Radio. And today's artist spotlight, gifted singer, songwriter, and just an all-around beautiful person. The legendary Mr. Elliot Lurie is joining us today, and we truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Teddy. Good to see you.
You know what? Everyone has become so fascinated with the hit single, but I want to take it to a completely different direction. I want to put the emphasis on songwriters, being as far as songwriting is concerned, because I think you're an incredible songwriter. And I know we're both 21. We've been around the block a few times. I know for me in the 70s, that was the time for singer-songwriters, for Simon and Garfunkel and for other great artists where the emphasis was putting on songwriting and it meant something. There was meaning. And I wanted to ask you, because I've seen you play it just with an acoustic guitar and you sound wonderful. It's natural. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think happened along the way as far as songwriters and songwriting is no longer an emphasis the way it used to be?
Well, I mean, everything has changed musically in today's production world and the way records are made. A lot of songs are sort of written by committee, multiple writers, and production is very important to stand out, and sound competitive with everything else that's out there. But there are still some folks out there who can get stripped down and sound pretty good. I think there's still real good songwriting around. You just have to look a little harder to find it because there's so much out there that you got to filter a lot of stuff till you find what you're looking for. But there's still good songwriting out there.
I think to me personally, the loss of the way radio used to be, you could turn to a particular station and find your favorite artist, find a certain kind of music that you want to listen to. And I think radio has changed so much where everything is based upon, it's streaming now.
Yeah. What used to be great about radio when I grew up and I grew up in New York, so we had 4 great top 40 radio stations. And I remember, when I was a teenager, listening to the car radio on the same station, in a course of 15 minutes, you could hear Bob Dylan, Marvin Gaye, the Byrds. You could hear every kind of music. They played the hits, and there was no differentiation between different genres. So you could hear all kinds of stuff and get exposed to all kinds of stuff. Now, with streaming, they choose the algorithms and stuff choose stuff similar to the stuff that you already listened to. So you get into a bag and they keep pounding on that bag for you, and you may not get exposed to a wider range of things.
I remember a time where I couldn't wait as far as being able to earn an allowance to cut grass or do chores and being able to go to the local record store and buy an album. And it was something magical about reading the liner notes, the album artwork. And I wanted to ask you, what was your opinion when you started seeing all the record stores falling by the wayside? I mean, Tower Records, Sam Goody, The Warehouse. What was your mindset? Did you ever think this would happen?
I didn't see that. I didn't see it coming. And I sure wish they were still around. I mean, I used to be able to spend hours in a big Tower Records going through stuff.
Right.
I miss that. I mean, the hunting through the internet is not the same as
right.
The physical stuff, seeing the pictures of the artists and looking at the liner notes, see who played on this. Maybe I'm not familiar with the artist. Looks like there's a lot of people that played on the record, so maybe I'll get that. You gotta dig a lot harder for that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's really changed. I mean, you've had an opportunity to do a lot of work behind the scenes, and I wanted to ask you, what gives you more gratification, working behind the scenes or actually performing live?
Now the performing live is still the most direct communication with people. Um, Working behind the scenes when I worked in the film music business was very interesting, and I learned a lot of things about it. I got to meet and work with a lot of really talented people, but it's a whole different thing from performing live. Performing live is a very very direct connection.
Do you prefer performing in a larger venue or something more
Depends
intimate?
what depends what I'm doing. You know, I do two different kinds of shows now, and I don't play that often anymore because the travel's kind of rough at our age. You know,
Right.
um, uh, I do certain shows that are electric with a band, and some that are, as you said, your singer songwriter shows with just a guitar. For those shows, a smaller place is probably a better scene for me. Uh, for the big shows, the more the merrier. You know, I like playing.
What I'm seeing now, a lot of artists are making a transition where they're selling their catalogs for large sum of money. And I didn't think it would ever get to that point that a lot of artists would sell their catalogs, because once the label gets a hold of them, they can quadruple the amount that they originally paid the artist to get the catalog. Why do you think this is happening to so many artists?
I think I think there are a couple of reasons. I think one is the market for it exploded so much that the dollars that people are throwing around are hard to resist. I think the other thing is that a lot of the artists who are selling are older artists. And you know, you sit down, you talk to your accountant, you talk to your estate lawyer, and you say, okay, you know, I'm looking after my kids and my wife, and maybe it's better than waiting, you know, every year for them to collect some royalties. Maybe it's better to plan for it in a different way. So I think both those factors come into play.
Okay. Because I've seen them, as far as the Stones are concerned, they have yet to sell their catalog. But I know, if I'm not mistaken, Bruce Springsteen just recently done that he sold his catalog. And I'm like, wow, it's going completely haywire. What is your opinion as far as streaming and how the artists are getting quote unquote paid from streaming now?
Well, I think the artists are underpaid in terms of where the money flows and how it flows. I mean, the artists are getting underpaid for a couple of reasons. But the main one is because the record companies are still paying the artists at the royalty rate that the artists agreed to with the record company. So the record company is still getting the bulk of the money. That
Right.
that's part one of it. Uh, Part two of it is, you know, I mean, if you look at Spotify, Spotify as a company has yet to record a profit. They're a public company, so you can look at their stuff on the, you know, and they've yet to record a profit because they give a large sums of money to the record companies. But the record companies only pay the artists based on the original artist deal. So that's a problem. But for what we like to call a legacy artist like myself, uh, streaming has been very good because used to be, you know, let's say 20 years ago, you wanted to find Brandy, you had to go to your Tower Records and you had to look through a bunch of oldie stuff and hopefully you would find a compilation that had Brandy on it. That's a lot of effort. And then you had to pay $12, $14, whatever it was for the whole CD with a bunch of other oldies compiled on it that you might not have been interested in. You were just interested in Brandy. So streaming for legacy artists and for songs that have had the good fortune to hang around like Brandy is a good thing. It gets more and more people easy access to it.
Do you think it's been more beneficial for today's artists to be independent or still on a major label from a monetary standpoint?
That's a tough call. I mean, from a monetary standpoint, obviously, if you're independent, you put your stuff out by yourself, you're going to collect the money that the record company would ordinarily collect. On the other hand, you know, you put your stuff up by yourself, you're up there with 100 million other things. So how is somebody going to find you? And that's
Right.
hopefully what what the record company's role is marketing you and making people be able to find you. As far as the split up income, there's no contest. If you're able to make it independently on your own, all that money that otherwise goes to the record company goes to you. But then you got to find a way to get discovered.
Without question, when you started in your 20s, the industry was completely different. A lot of artists during that era didn't understand the business side of the industry. How long did it take you to really learn the business side and understand this is a business first before anything else?
Well, we were pretty lucky in that we found some good people in terms of lawyer and management. So we didn't get ripped off too badly like some of the stories that you hear. But in terms of really understanding how how an artist and a writer makes money in the business, it took a couple of years to understand, oh, okay, that number at the end of the day doesn't mean a lot to my pocket. But this other number, which you may not keep your eyes on, that's more important,
Absolutely. And I know that I've had an opportunity to speak to so many wonderful artists like yourself. And one of the things they constantly kind of beat in my head, he said, is that a lot of these artists don't understand that when the label, quote unquote, gives them money, it's a loan. The label is like a bank. And they have to recoup that money back, and also giving me as much information as they possibly can to help me to understand, and a lot of these artists, young artists, to understand, is that how important it is to own your masters.
Yeah, well, you won't be able to do that with a record company too much, I don't think. And also I got to tell you that I'm not entirely up to speed on the most recent kinds of deals that are being made these days. I got out of that end of it about 8 or 10 years ago, and things change so quickly now. So it's different now than it was then. But usually a major record company will never own your masters. But I mean, the woman who is the greatest entrepreneur artist ever is Taylor Dane. I'm sorry, Taylor Swift, not Taylor Dane.
Taylor Swift.
It's Taylor Swift, because she remade all those records, put them out, and she owns them now because she didn't like the way she was being treated. But there aren't that many people who are able to do that. But she's not only a great artist, but she's a business genius.
And that's the thing we were talking about earlier, is having a clear understanding on how this business works and being able to reinvent yourself. But at the end of the day, it comes down to being able to put out a wonderful product. And the thing that I miss so much is that when you put out an album, it just wasn't one song. You had 12 songs on there, and people were clamoring to listen to the music. But now with the streaming, you put out one song and people, they buy that. And it's just not the same feeling. To me, it comes across as being very generic. It's nothing. There's no way that you can connect with the artist. And I really miss that, because you had an opportunity to do a meet and greet at various record stores, and they don't have that anymore. Do you think somewhere down the line that might change, or we're just where we're at right now?
I don't think it's going back, Teddy, but I'm a little bit more optimistic about it than you seem to be. I think that when you look artists, and again, Taylor Swift is the best example, but you can still connect with your fans once you get past a certain point. The thing is, like always, it's hard to break through, and it's hard to break through now because there's so much available and it's so easily accessible. But if you get a group of fans, you can talk to them on YouTube. You can connect to them through Facebook and all these social media. You can go out and do shows and do meet and greets. So you can still do it. Now, the concept of an album, that's a different story, because the concept of an album was, there were concept albums back then where all the songs meant to work. But my group, looking at that, our albums were not conceptual. They were just a collection of songs. Some were better than others. So I think that is is missing, the idea of a conceptual album. But that was a small part of it anyway, I think, back then. What I do miss is the physical album with the liner notes right there
Right.
telling you played on the record,
Right.
artwork, and I do miss that. But I'm a little bit more optimistic about it than you are, because I think there's still a pretty good way to connect with the audience.
You know, it's funny. Melissa Manchester she just released a new single, a duet that she worked on with Kenny Loggins, and it sounded wonderful. And the first thing that came to mind, if people are not truly Melissa Manchester fans, where are they going to hear the song at? Because as we said earlier, radio stations have changed so much. Where do you hear songs like that? Because to me, everything is geared to the United Kingdom. I see more artists from the United States that travel to England, Switzerland, Germany, and they're being treated in Japan. Forgive me, Japan, and being treated like royalty.
I don't know. I mean, all right. So let's take the Melissa Manchester Kenny Loggins thing for an example. I assume it's out on a major label, or maybe not. But
Right.
the first place people will find it might be the radio, but it might be on their playlist of, hot new releases on Spotify,
Right.
What's new. So there are places you can get it. As far as touring, Ken just did a huge tour. He just did what he called his farewell tour. He did a huge tour, did very well all across America. I kept an eye on it because my good friends, the Outright Review, opened for him on a lot of those shows, and very successful tour.
Okay.
So, I think it can be done. I'm much more optimistic about all this stuff with you, Teddy.
You know what? I guess what it is, I know, because my son gets on me, said, "Dad, you're stuck in the past. You're stuck in the past." And I tell him, it's not so much that I'm stuck in the past. I just have a greater appreciation and such a level of respect what artists did in the 60s, 70s, even in the 80s. And I think now that a lot of artists don't take the craft seriously. You get your tools and the Fruity Loops and all this other things. You put up a YouTube video and you get signed to a record label. And I remember artists could actually pick up a guitar and play. They could actually play percussions. They could play a trumpet. And I don't see this. To me, it's like the lost art of true musicianship. You can pick up an acoustic guitar and play and sound just as wonderful if you picked up an electric guitar. I miss that. I really, truly miss that.
Well, that part of it, I agree with you. The way records are made now and the way songs are written now is it's an entirely different process than it was back in the 70s and 80s. Because with what you can do on a simple laptop and, the kind of production that you can do, yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of music that is made in a way that is entirely different than the way we used to make music 50 years ago. And if you confine yourself to listening to, I guess, certain kinds of top 40 radio or whatever, that's all you'll hear. Again, you got to dig a little deeper. But yes, the entire process of making a pop record, so to speak, Brandy was made with four guys playing in the studio together. And we did a couple of overdubs, and we sang each chorus separately. We didn't copy and paste it. There's four choruses. We had to sing each chorus in tune and in time. And now you can just copy and paste it over and auto tune it a little bit if it's a little bit out of tune. So yes, that process has changed dramatically.
It is because to me, I've listened to both. I've listened to Brandy. I've listened to it on vinyl, and I've listened it on as far as digital. And I'm a vinyl guy. I'm a vinyl cat. It's something. I'm a vinyl guy. And it's just something about that rawness. Hearing that on vinyl is just something unique and something so special. I got to ask, because I know a lot of the fans want to know, are you going to perform anytime soon?
I'm doing a couple of things. I'm doing one thing out here in California in Riverside in November. It's a big multi-act thing where I think they're turning on the lights at Riverside for Christmas, and Mark McGrath is going to be on it with me, and a bunch of other acts, multi-act thing with a real good band. I do something every Christmas. I go back home to New Jersey, and I do a Christmas show at in a town called Red Bank at a great historical theater, the Count Basie Theater. I try to do that one every year. So I do things here and there, but if you want to, anybody wants to check it out, I do have a website, just ElliotLurie.com. I have a Facebook page, and usually if I'm playing, it's up on there.
I hope so. You know what? Whenever you get a chance, we would love you to have you come down to Houston and play. I mean, there are a lot of wonderful venues that would love to see you perform live, especially the House of Blues out here.
Let them know. Give me a call. I'm easy to find. I'm easy to find. I'm on the brand. I'm on the. Like I say, I don't like to travel too much, and I don't like to travel too far. So,
right.
I'm a little selective about it.
I understand. How did you deal with the whole pandemic? Because I know it affected a lot of people.
It was hard, man. It was hard. It wasn't hard on me like it is on touring artists who make their living touring and then couldn't. But one good thing came out of it. I don't know for me anyway, did you scope out that a cappella version of Brandy that's on YouTube?
Yes.
But that was a YouTube thing. What happened was I was supposed to do a show up near Toronto, Canada. And I had asked the singing group to join me because there's a particular song that I do in the set that only really works well if you have background singers working it. And we were set to do it, and then the pandemic came. And a couple of months later, in the heart of the pandemic, the guys called me up and they said, we have an a cappella version that we do of Brandy. Would you want to sing the lead on it? And I said, well, send it to me. I'd certainly be interested. And they sent me this fabulous a cappella arrangement of Brandy. So I put my vocal on it, and then we did a video, all Zoom stuff, and cut it together. Right. Came out real well. People seem to love it, So it's up there on YouTube if you want to check it out. But that came out real well, and that was, one of the few good things for me that came out of COVID.
And I noticed that a lot of artists during that time, they were doing live concerts on Zoom, on Instagram, doing some on Facebook to make sure they were still connected to their fans. But it has been a dream of mine to actually have you on the show. Like I said, I have so much reverence for great artists and great songwriters, and I think you're an exceptional songwriter. And I want to thank you for allowing me to converse with you. Whatever you need, please do not hesitate to let me know. I would definitely like my album signed and autographed by you whenever you get a chance. Whenever you get a chance, I really would. But it has been an honor. Whatever you need, please do not hesitate to let us know. We would love to promote whatever you're doing.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you, Teddy. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. The legendary Mr. Elliot Lurie here on Night Traxx Radio. Family, be sure to go check out his official website to get all the latest updates as far as upcoming performances. That's at ElliotLurie.com. That's ELLIOT Lurie, LURIE, ElliotLurie.com. And for those who missed the interview, no need to fear. We got you covered. You can always see the interview in its entirety on our official YouTube channel. That's at Night Traxx with dual X's, double X. That's at Night Traxx Radio Podcast. And also you can catch up with us on Instagram, same handle, Night Traxx Radio, TikTok, and of course on Facebook Live. And also what we're going to do, if you like the video, we got something special for you too. We also make sure we upload the audio to our iHeartRadio station. So we got you covered all the way around. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and allowing the teddy bear to help you tune out and get all the negativity in your life. I know we all have experienced a lot of negative things, but it's all right. We're going to get through this. I promise you. But as in always, I want everyone to keep it soulful here on Night Traxx Radio. God bless.